Hello, Lee. Good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news on a very cold morning this morning. Cold and frosty morning. There's not a lot to say. But there is a lot to say, Liam. There's a lot to say. There's probably not a lot to say about Manchester City. Nobody's interested in Man City. But in Manchester United, there is a lot to say this morning. We've had Ten Hag angry after the game last night. Really interested in that. Harry Maguire says he's very good at psychology and he's living the dream for England and Manchester United. But more importantly to many of us, it's the transfer news. We need a striker. We've had an update from Fabrizio Romano about Joao Felix, the price, and his dream is to play in the Premier League. And also we had the Cody GAKPO comments last night. So lots to get into this morning. And we will talk about the transfer news. And I think that is important. But I do just want to say, probably the most important bit of news last night and this morning is what Ten Hag had to say after the game last night. He basically said there was more negatives than positives. We got ran off in the midfield and the defence was sleepy in the first half, and we got ran off in the midfield in the first half, and there's more negatives than positives, and basically it wasn't good enough. And I've got to apologise here because I spent a lot of time last night saying it's a friendly, people are going to be rusty, let's not read too much into it, let's read about let's look at the individuals. And you know what? This is why I love Ten Hag. This is why I want him to be our manager, because he's readdressing the standards at the football club. He's pulling us back to the standards that we knew and loved and appreciated under Sir Alex Ferguson, whereby, yes, it's a friendly, but it's a game for Manchester United where people are watching and there are standards. And whether you're playing behind closed doors or in a friendly in Spain with 15,000 people watching, there is a standard in that shirt that was not met and it wasn't good enough. And I love that. I love that. It gives me goosebumps. I love that because, to be honest with you, I watched the game yesterday. You watched the game and I'm like, yeah, Donny wasn't good. Williams wasn't good. Wan-Bissaka wasn't good. McTominay wasn't good. Elanga wasn't good. And you sort of make excuses, well, you know, fitness, rusty, this, that and the other. And then Ten Hag comes out and says there's way more negatives than positives. The youth did well in the second half, but the first team in the first half was not good enough. And you just go, you know what? He's the manager. He's saying that. I'm going to say that. And for years, I individually, and many of you as well, and this community has been called negative. The negative stand. They're always moaning. Well, what are you going to say about your fucking manager then? Because these standards that I and many of you have had for the last few years, where we've been tainted as moaners, and now being publicly stated by the manager. It's not about moaning. It's not about negativity. It's about bloody standards. And some people in this fan base have completely lost it. They've lost the standards. They'd rather mope around and be sympathetic to shit players than actually go, we are Manchester United. We do have standards. And that wasn't good enough last night. Or that wasn't good enough last week. Or you're not good enough. I don't care what interview you're doing. I don't care what sympathy you want. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Go and play for Everton. You'll still earn good money. We are not a charity at Manchester United. You cannot be a shit player and then moan about people saying you're shit. Fuck off and go and play for somebody else. We're Manchester United. And I think that's what Erik Ten Hag's doing. Not me, not you. That's what Erik Ten Hag is doing. He's coming out after what many people feel is a meaningless friendly, and he's saying that's not good enough. The negatives outweigh the positives. It's not acceptable. Finally, we've got a manager that is in tune with people like myself who've been called negative for the last few years for calling out the same shit that Ten Hag is calling out. It's not what you know, and I, you know what, I'm behind him. I'm behind him. So you know, it's very, very positive from the manager. I love Ten Hag, and I think he's got exactly the right attitude. And I think all these bloody well-wishers over the last few years who've protected shit players because they're from the youth, or you know they're English, or you know they're my favourite player, or you know I've got the name on the back of the shirt, or you know what, you're being too harsh. Bullshit. There's standards at this football club, and we finally got a manager that's bringing them back instead of putting a Y on the end of the name and smiling. Anyway. The youth players did have an excuse, Yell, and he didn't include the youth players in it. He said that they learnt a lot from it, and you know they put a lot of energy in. He wasn't including the second half; he was including the first half. But yes, big shout out to Ten Hag. Anyway, let's fly into the transfer news. We will start off. We started off with the right energy. Exactly. This is what we need to bring back. You know, I want to talk about Harry Maguire in a minute, and he's been speaking as part of England, and he said that, you know, I'm living the dream, I'm Man United captain, and I've got 52 caps for England, I'm living the dream, it's about psychology, and, you know, I believe in myself, and I've got confidence, and that's great. it's great what he's doing for England, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you've been shit for the last year, mate, and you've been dropped quite rightly. And that goes to Luke Shaw, that goes to Bruno, that goes to Rashford, goes to Sancho, it goes to all of them. You know, some of them come out and start talking like the criticism they've had is completely, ridiculous. No, you were fucking shite last year. All of you. Disgracefully shit. Embarrassingly shit. I've not forgotten a year ago, the toxic leaks. I mean, that's the worst squad I've seen in the Premier League. So, I've had to be strong over the last year. You've also been shit, mate, as has most of that squad. So I'm glad that you're good at psychology, and I'm glad that you're bouncing back, and I'm over the moon that you're doing well with England. And please note, it's not United fans talking about Harry Maguire. This happened on the international duty. All the shit he gets, a lot of it's not from United fans. United fans aren't talking about Maguire. We're saying it's good that he's playing well in the World Cup. I mean, he's not a first-choice centre-back anyway, so it's good. So all this shit he gets, I mean, I don't hear United fans talking about him anyway. So, but look, at the end of the day, it comes back to standards. If you're getting criticism, 99.9% of it is because you're not playing well on a pitch in a Man United shirt. And if you don't, so people, it's just part and parcel of the game. I've heard we're looking at Juranovic, the Celtic right back. What do you think of him? Says Luke 82. I think he's good, but I also think that Scooby Doo is 26 today. Scooby Doo? No way. You're having a laugh. Scott McTominay, Scooby Doo. He's not 26 today. He's 26 today. I don't believe it. I always thought he was 19. 19. But yeah, look, you know what? All Man United players need to hit the standards. Ten Hag showed that yesterday. We've got this story about Jadon Sancho. We're concerned about him. We want him to do well. We want Maguire to do well. We want McTominay to do well. We want Fred to do well. All these players who get criticised, they're being criticised because they're not performing on the pitch. I have never heard anybody said, look at Fred's crap car. Look at McTominay's crap hair. I don't see people saying that. Oh, I don't like Harry Maguire, the way he runs. No, it's about the way you play football. And you don't need to do a psychology class for that. You don't. I did a show a few weeks ago and I was a right moody arsehole and I got loads and loads of shit for it. And I apologised and I realised it and I moved on. If you know why people are criticising you, it's very easy to compartmentalise it and move on. You're being criticised because you've been a bit shit for the last year. Be better. Look at Rashford. Anyway, let's move back to the transfer news. So, I do want to talk about this. Fabrizio Romano has done an update on Joao Felix, a big update. So basically he's saying that Atletico Madrid will be looking for between 100 and 120 million euros for Joao Felix. However, he also goes on to say that it is Joao Felix's dream to play in the Premier League. Now, where does that put Manchester United? I think it puts us out. I don't think it puts us in. 100 million euros for Joao Felix is too much. 120 million euros for Joao Felix is way too much. But he is a player that we inquired about in the summer, and he is a player that wants to play in the Premier League, and he is a player that would love to come to Manchester United because we're a Premier League club and we're massive. When a journalist or anybody says, or a player says, it's my dream to play in the Premier League, that means it's their dream to play for Manchester United. Not exclusively. I'm not saying that they exclusively want to come to United, but when you hear a player say, it's my dream to play in the Premier League, they're basically saying, it's my dream to play for Manchester United, Liverpool, probably Chelsea, maybe Arsenal, Man City. The reason they don't say it's my dream to play for Liverpool is because it's their dream to play in the Premier League, and there's a select 5 clubs that they would be happy to play for. Not many people say it's my dream to play in La Liga. They normally say it's my dream to play for Real Madrid or Barcelona. So when people say it's my dream to play in the Premier League, it's their dream to play for Manchester United. It's their dream to play for Liverpool. It's a collection of 4 or 5 clubs that they would be happy to play for. And sometimes it's 2 or 3, but it's always Manchester United. So Joao Felix would love to come and play for Manchester United. It's his dream to play for Manchester United. We know that. And the current Premier League situation is that Man City wouldn't buy him. Not convinced Liverpool would buy him. Don't really see why Chelsea would want him. So it would be Arsenal or Manchester United, I think. And therefore, you've got to put us at the top of the queue. Hi, Mark. Are we being linked to any right back? I'm worried about the workload that awaits Dillo after the World Cup, says Karan. Well, I certainly don't think Wan-Bissaka and Brandon Williams look like they can do the job after yesterday. We need a right back. Ten Hag has told the club he wants a right back, and they keep telling... Well, they told him in the summer he couldn't have one and to use Wan-Bissaka or Williams, and I still think he's saying I want a right back. I think McTominay's got nice hair, says Robert McCormack. Yes, good. Anyway... So, yeah, look, Dumfries, Frimpong, there are right backs. I like Gusto, but we need a right back, yeah. I remember when we had Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, Nani, and we would go, Nani is not good enough, but Nani will sit everyone on the bench today, says Tusher. Yeah, well, different times, different standards, and I think that's what Eric Ten Hag is trying to get back. But look, are we out of the race for Joao Felix because that price tag's been set at 100 million euros? I still do not believe that Joao Felix is going to go for 100 million euros. Now, I've read the article by Fabrizio Romano about his dream is to play in the Premier League, so Man United. I've read the article about 100 million euros to 220 million euros that Atletico Madrid want. And I'm just like, I've got to speak to our community about that. Yovi says he's going for 80 plus, easy. Who? I've got to ask you about this, because sometimes I'm like, I need to speak to the community about this. Who is going to pay? My interpretation of this, and I tweeted it yesterday, and I got a bit of shit for it, but typically on a tweet, some people don't really understand what I'm saying. I said that Atletico Madrid wanting £100 million for Joao Felix, they need to get in the real world. He's been a flop. You're not getting any more than 70. And I got loads of people saying, how can you say with your chest that Joao Felix is a flop when you've got Jadon Sancho running around on your wing and you paid £80 million for Harry Maguire? And I'm like, what are you talking about? At what moment did I compare Joao Felix to Jadon Sancho or Harry Maguire? I love these conversations. Like I love these conversations that you get on social media, defined as idiot conversations with turbo prats. But when I say that Joao Felix has been a flop at Atletico Madrid and you're not getting your money back, what has that got to do with Jadon Sancho? Absolutely nothing. My point is, Atletico Madrid are not getting £100 million or euros for Joao Felix because he's been a flop. But what people do is they get absolutely butthurt and start going, "Brr, brr, brr." They can't control themselves. They can't type quick enough. Sancho's a flop. Maguire's a flop. What the fuck has that got to do with me saying that Joao Felix has been a flop at Atletico Madrid and not getting full price? And also, what people don't understand is, he has been a flop at Atletico Madrid. It doesn't mean he's shit. There's a bargain to be had there. I like him. I want him. But he's flopped at Atletico Madrid. Some people just can't compute, can they? They cannot compute. It's the red light, green light mentality and no amber in between. Atletico Madrid, Joao Felix, he's been a flop. I want him at United because I think there's a player there. But he's been a flop at Atletico Madrid. No. He's a good player. He's better than the shit you've got. He's better than Luke Shaw. He's better than Garnacho. Yeah, you're not listening. I would like him at United. I think he's a very good player, but he has flopped at Atletico Madrid. Now, the factors as to why he's flopped probably are not his fault. Doesn't suit Simeone, hasn't settled. I still think he's a good player, but he's flopped at Atletico Madrid. My point is, I would like him at Man United, but why the fuck should we pay £100 million for a player that has flopped at Atletico Madrid? They need to sell him. They've publicly said it. You've got to... If we put Harry Maguire for sale, are we going to get 80 million quid? Are we going to get £50 million for Wan-Bissaka? No. They flopped at... Well, Maguire's not flopped, really, but Wan-Bissaka has. Maguire was overpriced. You would never get what we paid for him back. But Wan-Bissaka's flopped. So you're not getting 50 million quid for him. And that's what I'm saying. I don't see how Atletico Madrid are going to get 100 million euros for a player that they're desperate to sell who hasn't done well for them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's going to be a big queue of people going, we'll pay 100 million, but I just can't see it. Felix could go to Newcastle, says Karen. Well, there you go. It's a buyer's market. And I suppose if somebody comes in and says, yes, we'll pay that, then yes, they might well pay that. But I don't think he's going for anything more than 70 million because I just don't think that anybody will want to pay that amount of money for a player that's, only just starting for Portugal, to be honest. Most of the times I watch Portugal, he's on the bench. He's not starting for Atletico Madrid. Yes, he's a big talent, but I don't know what you think in the chat, but I don't think he goes for anything more than 70 million quid. And I'd be interested in that if I was United. I'd offer 70 million. In fact, what I would offer is what I said yesterday. I'd offer him 50 million with 20 or 30 in add-ons based on Champions League football, appearances, goals. I'd say, we'll give you 50 now, and there's 20 or 30 in add-ons. That's what I would do, and I think that works for everybody. And I think Atletico Madrid would take it. And I personally think this 100 million euros shit is just about them trying to get a price that's unrealistic. But look, we'll have to wait and see. And it comes back to the same thing again. Cody Gakpo wants to play in the Premier League. Joao Felix wants to play in the Premier League. One of them is going for about 70, 80 million, Joao Felix. And that Cody Gakpo price keeps going up and up and up. Dutch sources yesterday were saying that PSV actually want 60 million for him now because they've looked at what Man United played for Anthony and they think Gakpo should go for the same. So we've double fucked ourselves, really, haven't we? We have. We've double dildoed it, really, because at the end of the day, he's I don't know what I just said. He's they're right. I hate to say it, but PSV are right. Because we paid £85 million for Anthony, who's a winger for Ajax, and Gakpo is a winger/forward for PSV, and they'll go, he's scoring more and he's had more assists. So we've actually done ourselves in a little bit, because PSV will say we want 60 because you paid 85 for Anthony, who wasn't scoring as many goals. So I don't know. That Gakpo price worries me. I wouldn't pay anything more than 40. His value is 40 at top, and if we pay 60, we're overpaying. But we overpaid for Martinez, and it looks like a good deal. So sometimes overpaying, but we've caused that issue ourselves, I think. And it goes back to the question that we asked yesterday: would you pay 70 for Joao Felix, or would you pay 50, 60 for Gakpo? And I think Gakpo's massively overpriced. As much as I want him to join us, I think he's massively overpriced, and we've got to drive it down. But I agree with Tushar that Felix is a great talent, yeah, it's. I probably would go with. I probably would go for Cody Gakpo, but Joao Felix is a better talent. But you know what? It's not a dilemma in a sense, because sometimes you walk into a January transfer window and there's nothing to do. You need something and there's nothing there to do it. Many a January transfer window with United, you go into it and you're like, we need a centre midfielder, we need a striker or whatever, and they're not there. And the Glazers can go, well, there's nothing there. But this time, we desperately have to sign a striker, and there are at least 3 decent options completely available. So United have got to get a deal done, haven't they? Depay for half the price is TT. Depay's free, mate. There's no half the price there. He's going for free. Barcelona will happily offload him. If we give them money for him, we're foolish. But Memphis Depay, just to me, just feels like a massive step back. I mean, massive personality. A flop. He is a flop at Barcelona, let's be honest. And not the right profile of player, I don't think, for Manchester United. It's a massive ego coming into the dressing room that I don't think we need that type of player. I like the player, but it doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right to me. Nawaz and Luke said they'd go for Felix 100%. Well, it'll be interesting. The reason we're speaking about Joao Felix and Gakpo so much is because they're both available. They are for sale from PSV and Atletico Madrid, respectively. And they are both players that United inquired about in August when Ten Hag was the manager. So we know that Ten Hag likes them both. We know they're both available, and we know we need a striker. So for me, it's got to be one of those. D says that Memphis Depay is not a flop at Barcelona. Okay, mate, in your dreams. All right. Look, I like Memphis Depay. I know he's got a fan club. I get it. But he hasn't been a success at Barcelona, mate, because they wouldn't be letting him go for free if he had. He's only 28. So quite clearly something's not gone right for a 28-year-old to be available on a free transfer. I would define that as a flop. But again, look, people just don't like the word flop, do they? Atletico Madrid, Joao Felix is a flop. I would love him at United. I think people think the word flop means you're shit. It doesn't. It just means you've not been successful at the club you are at. Let me think of a Man United player that we've currently got who was a flop. And there will be somebody. God, can't think of anyone now. But we'll have done it somewhere in the past. There'll be plenty of examples of people who flopped at a club and then they go elsewhere. Kevin De Bruyne flopped at Chelsea, ended up being one of the world's best players. So, it doesn't mean you're finished by any means. What would Felix's wages be comparable? Added point to consider as well. Thoughts are if you could get a right back for the difference, is Sinead. I don't know what he earns. I imagine he is probably on quite a good whack, actually, Sinead. And would you pay overvalue for Gakpo now, knowing we'll spend less in the summer, or take a cheaper deal loan now and spend big in the summer on a forward, says Charlie Max? Well, this is the thing that Man United may well look at, to be honest with you. They might do. But my big problem is, can't write another season off. We did this last January. We're not going to buy anyone now because we'll wait until the summer. No football club can say in the middle of the season we're waiting until the summer, because you're writing that season off. If we go and get a stopgap in January, we're writing the season off in a season where Arsenal are top and top four is open. And I did not predict we would get top four this year. I still don't predict we're going to get top four this year, but it's open. That door is open. We've got Casemiro in our midfield. We've got Martial back. We've got Rashford playing well, Anthony to settle. You've got Eriksen playing well. You've got Martinez and Varane who've been superb. Dalot and Shaw are doing well. De Gea's been brilliant in goal. We can get top four, but you've got to buy a striker. It's very different to last year. We should have bought players for Rangnick anyway, but they didn't and we fell apart. This year, I think we've got the bones of a good side. We need the depth. And if we don't buy a striker in January and we go stopgap with an Igalo or something stupid like that, that is the club letting the fan base down again. We've got to buy in January. There's no stopgap option out there. What do you think about the Tyler Adams rumours, says Santa Claus? Well, it's a very apt name because I think it's fantasy. I'd love Tyler Adams at Manchester United, but he's only just signed for Leeds, and I can't see us doing a deal like that. So, no, I don't think that will happen. Let me just make sure I've caught up on the super chats. Thank you very much. Oh, can I also just give a shout out to the members? I think we've got a few members in the chat, like Tom Grant, and he's talking about. In fact, Tom Grant had a good point there. He was talking about how a few players like Forlan didn't do well at United and then went and did well elsewhere. Hail Europa and Andre members, as I can see, Stitch is as well. Ollie Rue and Donny van der Beek. Big shout out to the members in the chat. You can see the members because they have the little badges next to their name. You can join the members club by clicking the join button, which is pinned to the top of the live chat, or the join button underneath the video. The reason I'm talking about the members club is because they're great, like Ricardo. But Santa Claus is a United fan, yes. And Ben Jenkins is a member as well. The reason I'm talking about them is because we uploaded a new video yesterday, which is we put exclusive video up each week for our members to say thank you. We uploaded a new video yesterday. Lots of you have watched it, but make sure if you are a member, you do watch it, because it's a nice little interactive Man United quiz for you. Beth went against Adam. I was the quiz master, but you can play along as well. Here's a little clip of it. Who scored Manchester United's last goal of last season, and it would have been the third goal against Brentford at home in a 3-0 win?
Oh, God.
That is... Check it out on the members section. And we've got another one for you next week as well. And we've got a lot more stuff coming up on the members, like the stats deep dive and all that as well. So big shout out to the members. Thanks for supporting the channel. Right, I did mention Ten Hag at the start of the show, so I don't feel like the need to go back in on Ten Hag. Suffice to say, standards are really important, and he wasn't happy. If you didn't tune in at the start of the show, you need to rewatch it. But Ten Hag was not happy last night after the match. Not happy at all. Basically said that the standards at the club are, basically said that the players in the first half let down the fans. In so many words, he said it wasn't good enough. There was far more negatives than positives. We got run off in the midfield too much, and the defence was asleep. And he was talking about the team in the first half, because in the second half he said the youth did a good job. So look, I'm not listening to this shit anymore. I'm calling it out. I'm not having this, oh, you're always negative, you're always moaning. That's exactly what our manager's doing. Exactly what our manager's doing. Moaning is not moaning when your club's not won a title for 10 years. Moaning and negativity is not moaning and negativity when we've not won any silverwares for 5 years. I'm not having it anymore. I never had it anyway. But these prats who have a pop at fellow United fans because they're being negative. We've got standards at this football club, and we've now got a manager who understands it. You know, is anyone waking up this morning going, God, Ten Hag's so moany and negative, moaning about players who played in a fucking friendly? No, they're not. People are going, wow, my manager. Because actually, we finally got a manager who's not happy-go-lucky. We've now got a manager who is obsessed with winning, and he's calling out the shit. And he said after the game yesterday, the negatives outweighed the positives. And yet most of us were watching that game and going, it's only a friendly. You know, there's not a lot you can, you know, we look at the individual players, but there's not a lot you can moan about really because it's only a friendly. And then the manager comes out and says, you know what? It wasn't good enough. And he's right. You know, I was looking at individual performances, but he's right. The midfield got run off all the time. And that midfield had Donny van der Beek in it and Scott McTominay. And all right, Iqbal's a youth player, but they did get run off a lot. And what that means is they were losing their men from the runners, from the midfield, which is something that happens constantly with Fred and McTominay last year. The defence was asleep, lazy, asleep, whatever you want to call it, you know, not focused. And he's right. And we've got to get those standards up. And those players will wake up this morning. And Nicholas is right. If you don't moan, you'll never progress. Those players will wake up this morning and they'll probably wake up and go, oh, it's only a friendly. I've got another game on Saturday. No, now they'll wake up and go, the manager's just thrown us under the bus. We better fucking step it up on Saturday, which is exactly what you want. You need that. Anyway, also, I did mention that Harry Maguire had been speaking. Obviously, Harry's out with England at the moment, and I suppose most of us will wish them all the best. Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire and Marcus Rashford. But then again, Varane's a Man United player. You might be wishing him all the best on Saturday. I mean, being English, I want England to win, but I'm looking forward to the game. But Maguire has been talking about his last year, I suppose, and basically he said, look, I'm good at psychology. I've had to be over the last year. You know, I listen to my friends and family and the team and the staff, and they tell me how valuable I am. And to be honest with you, I'm 29 years of age. I'm the Man United captain. I've played 52 times for England. If you told me that as a kid, I'd say I'd be living the dream. And he's right. He is living the dream. I mean, some people think it's a nightmare, but it is a dream. You know, he is living the dream. I can't say enough how hard it is to be a professional footballer. I mean, it's many years ago now, but I played a decent level when I was 13, 14, 15. I had trials. I'm sat here talking to you. I'm not sat here at a World Cup captaining Man United. So, look, I've got total respect because in many areas of life, you can be parachuted into positions of power, whether it's through people you know, whether it's through family connections, wealth, whatever. You cannot get a footballer that gets parachuted into a position that they haven't worked for. You can get exposed when you get to a certain level, but you cannot get that in football. You've got to work, you know, from youth football to an academy, through all the youth there. You know, it could be Millwall's academy, and then you've got to go and sign for Arsenal. You know, the path to being an England international and a Manchester United player, it's there to be respected. But I think, you know, when people say a footballer's totally shit, they don't mean they're totally shit, because ultimately every player that's playing in the Premier League has worked ridiculously hard to get there. But there are levels. And what happens is, it can be a little bit of, somebody said it's imposter syndrome. It's arrogance. It's many things. It's frustration. But there are many Manchester United players that have signed for Manchester United and haven't been good enough. And they've worked really hard to get there. You know, they've beaten thousands and thousands of other lads to get into professional football because they've deserved it. It's just about levels. It's just about exactly what Erik ten Hag is talking about. It's about standards. Just because you are a Man United player doesn't mean you're good enough. We've bought so much shit over the last 10 years. We've paid ridiculous wages. If I was a Man United squad player or first team player, I would not sit there and go, I'm a Man United player, I've made it. Because that's not what Roy Keane did. That's not what Paul Ince did. That's not what Paul Scholes did. That's not what Gary Neville did. Every day you go to work and you have to work hard to stay at that level. And then one day, like Gary Neville did, you're playing and you go, I'm not at this level anymore. I'm stopping. And that's what a Man United player is. It's not sitting on, I'm a Man United player, I've made it, everyone else can fuck off. And I think that attitude does come out of that dressing room, and it did last year. I'm a Man United player, I don't need to listen to the fans, I'm the one playing for Man United. That's the wrong attitude. The right attitude is every single day you've got to make sure that you know, I think the best attitude to have at United is never feeling that you're good enough for that shirt, because that will drive you on. I think we've got too many players last year who thought they were good enough to wear the shirt and just took it for granted. But look, I've got no problem with what Harry Maguire said there, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who give him criticism. I hope he plays well, and I hope that he comes back and plays well for Manchester United, because that benefits us. But my message is always to any United player: if I criticise a United player, it's not personal. It's never personal. It's about whether I think they're good enough to wear a Manchester United shirt, and that will always be the definer for me. I know United players that have played for United in the past who are legends of this club, greats of this club, complete and utter arseholes in real life. But you don't judge them. You don't go, that's a great goal, but you're a fucking arsehole in real life. You go, that's a great goal, he's a Man United player. On the other hand, he's a load of shit, but he's a great guy in real life, let's feel sorry for him. You can't do that. It always must be about the standards of Manchester United and are they a Man United player? And that's it. That's it. I think the modern world, we get too drawn into what the person's like off the pitch and, oh, they're a nice guy, and then sympathy comes in, and you cannot have sympathy in high level sport. You cannot have sympathy in high competitive sport, because you will lose to the better and more ruthless side. And that is what high competitive sport's all about. And I think too often we're spinning the rhetoric around Man United players to feel sorry for them, when actually the bottom line is it's the club's responsibility to deal with their mental health, etc., 100%. And it's the fans' responsibility to not be wandering away from their football ability, because that's not fair. We should be focused on their footballing ability. And if a player feels they're getting a lot of shit, they should then be able to put it in a drawer and go, it's because I'm shit at football, I must do better. It's not because I'm a bad person. And that's where I think the world has become muddied, because when I look at these United players, I'm quite happy to say such and such is never good enough, let's get rid of him. But I'm not happy with, he's a fucking idiot, get rid of him, I can't stand his car, or something like that. Luke82 says, Mark, you're the best at what you do with the best panellists, mods and community, so stuff what these jealous wannabes say, says Luke82. Thank you very much for your super chat there, Luke. And rest up, build up, let's see how our defenders do this weekend. We will see why Varane and Martinez are ahead of Maguire. World Cup is won on defence, they say, says rest up, build up. I like Maguire plays well for England, but England play a lot of shit teams where they're not, Kiefer Moore, fucking hell, he's shite. Kiefer Moore up front on his own against John Stones and Harry Maguire. I mean, bloody hell, it's like being on holiday. The Premier League is very different to international football. Some people think we bought Maguire off a good World Cup. We bought him a year after, didn't we, to be fair? So I don't think it was about that. But there's a big difference between playing in the Champions League and playing in the World Cup. And there's a big difference between playing the World Cup and the Premier League. The World Cup is very prestigious, but the standard's nowhere near the same, and it's not as quick. But I'm happy with how United players are playing. I just think every player needs to remove their head from their arse sometimes and realise that the criticism you're getting... I mean, look, if you're not listening to the criticism because you think it's just Twitter noise, that's dangerous. Because if you're surrounded by people who are there to massage your ego, how are you ever going to learn? It's all right going, I don't listen to the criticism. I listen to the people that know me and like me. Well, that's a very naive, blinkered way to live. Sometimes criticism is the best learning point. Don't listen to toxic abuse. But you should be listening to people, dissecting why they don't want you to play for Manchester United. Because if you go home and your best mate goes, oh, I think you're amazing, mate. You played brilliant today. Oh, and thanks for the Ferrari you got me for Christmas. They're never going to tell you the truth because you're giving them handouts. They're your best mate. The criticism that United players have had over the last year has exclusively been from what I've seen because they've not been good enough. And if you look at this season, look at the sea of change for Marcus Rashford. Like, he was a player that most people would have probably sold in the summer, and he's now in a position 3 months later where people are saying, yeah, I would give him a contract. That's the change you need to see. That is the path that many people need to follow, of the low as well, and people like that. Will United buy Proctor or Kent? Who will suit the Ten Hag system, says Muzzy. Thank you very much. Troy says, let's not worry about the friendly. Well, you might want to speak to your manager, Troy, because Erik ten Hag was not happy. He said the negatives outweighed the positives and he was not happy. So, look, I'll go with the standards of the manager on this. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Really enjoying the morning shows at the moment. They're waking me up, that's for sure. Don't forget to join the members club. Check out that quiz that went up yesterday and have a go at it. Let us know how you do in the comments of that video. And if you are a member, certainly don't miss it. Thanks everyone who's joining and supporting the channel. We've got a live show for you this afternoon in the studio, a brand new sort of interactive show. So get ready for that. I think it's going to go up at about 5, might be 4 or 5. I can't remember what time it's going up, but we're in the studio, interactive with you, and we've got a guest on as well. So get ready for that. And if anything breaks before that, then we'll be live. I'll be live at 8 o'clock as per usual. Take care, everyone, and I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for the show. Really enjoyed it. Take care.